Hello and welcome to Math Lessons with Linda. Today's topic is solving right triangles, and what our focus is going to be is using sides of a right triangle to find the angles. This is a little different than what we have done in previous videos if you've watched those, so follow along with me. In this right triangle, I've labeled where the right angle is, the angle that we want to find, and then here are two sides that we know of our triangle. The hypotenuse is opposite the right angle, so that's 27, and we have this leg that's 18, but we don't know either of these acute angles. So what I'm going to do is, using the sides, figure out what ratio that I have from the perspective of the x angle. So for this one, I've got the x is across from the 18. So that side is going to be my opposite side. And as we mentioned, the 27 is the hypotenuse. So opposite over hypotenuse tells me that I need to use the sine. So normally we would say the sine of our angle, which a lot of the time we know the angle, is equal to the opposite over the hypotenuse. You will need to have either a scientific calculator or a graphing calculator to help you solve this problem. So you may want to pause and grab one if you don't have it. Since we don't know the angle, that's what we're going to be asking the calculator to find. Normally we would just hit our sine button, enter in our degree angle, and it would give us whatever our ratio is. But we have to do what's called the inverse trig function for sine. And this is what we enter in on our calculator. You'll have to either hit the second button or an inverse function button, but this should pop up on your calculator. A sign with a little -1 that looks like an exponent, it just means inverse. And then we're going to tell the calculator what the ratio is for the sine, because we know this. And in turn, your calculator is going to tell you what the angle is. So I'll give you a moment to plug in inverse sine of 18 over 27, and we will round to the nearest degree. In this case, x is 42 degrees. So now that I've found one of the angles that's the acute angle, if I needed to, I can go back, substitute that in here, and then I could go now and find my other acute angle, which would just be 90 minus 42. So that would mean that my other acute angle is going to be 48. And if I wanted now, I can either use the Pythagorean theorem to solve for my other side, but the focus on this problem was just to be finding what our angles were. So let's do one more that is like this, where we're finding the angle and all we have are some sides. Remember that your triangles sometimes will be oriented differently. So you can draw it on your paper and then you can just turn your paper around. So in this problem, here's the angle that we're going to find. I have this side as 4 and this side as 12. So from the perspective of my angle x, I'm going to figure out what these sides represent. So the 4 is right next to my angle, and so that's going to be my adjacent, and the 12 is across from my angle. That's the opposite. So opposite over adjacent, if I do opposite over adjacent, that is my tangent function. So I'm going to, again, write out that I want to find the tangent of x, and I know that it is 12 over 4 for its ratio. So just like the previous question, we're going to do the inverse. So you hit second or inverse for tan, it'll pop up this little -1. You're going to tell it the ratio is 12 over 4, which you could also reduce to 3 if you wanted. And I'll give you a moment to do that. We will round it to the nearest angle. In this case, we should get 72 degrees. So again, if you want to figure out the other angle, we would take 90 and we would subtract 72 from that. So our other angle would be 18 degrees. So those are a couple of examples on how you can solve a right triangle just for the angles using the sides and your trig functions.